Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this evening's council workshop. The purpose of this meeting is to provide each of our council-appointed committees with an opportunity to address council with an overview of their work plan and the achievements to date. Now, in accordance with the procedural bylaw, no decisions will be made today. The town currently has approximately 60 volunteers appointed to its statutory and advisory committees, and volunteers are the roots of a strong community. Committees work to improve accessibility, financial integrity, economic prosperity, heritage, and environmental preservation of Newmarket. And on behalf of Council, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for your commitment to your community, and I look forward to hearing about the positive work and achievements that each committee has undertaken. And I'll now turn this over to Lisa Lyons, our Director of Legislative Services and our Town Clerk, to outline the background and the format for this evening's workshop. Lisa?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Town of Newmarket currently has volunteers supporting 13 statutory and advisory committees. Committees act as expert sounding boards for specific issues. They act as quasi-judicial bodies for appeals, property standards, and minor variances. They provide input from specific communities and interests on matters like accessibility and inclusion, and they also organize special events and promote issues of public interest in the community. As Council may recall, a committee review was undertaken in the previous term of Council and was completed in early 2015. As a result of that review, Council adopted the Canadian Code for Volunteer Involvement, which identifies a number of principles for volunteer engagement and promotes communication between volunteers and organizations. Council also approved a committee administration policy which established transparent and equitable procedures to ensure that committees formed by Council are managed in a manner that fosters community involvement and encourages collaboration between the town and its committee volunteers. Terms of references were updated and aligned with Council's strategic priorities, also taking into account resource requirements such as frequency of meetings, budget requests, and staff support. Comprehensive orientation sessions were provided to all committee members at the beginning of the term, and refreshers have been done when new individuals are appointed. This provides the opportunity for new and existing members to ask questions as it relates to their membership or role on the committee. Additionally, a midterm check-in survey was recently conducted over the summer to obtain committee member feedback regarding their volunteer experience to date. Additional information regarding the survey will be communicated to Council and the committee members in the near future. Staff will also outline the process and next steps to undertake a committee review for the next term of Council as part of a best practice and continuous improvement initiative. As you can see on the agenda, there are 4 presentations being 5 to 10 minutes each, with an opportunity for questions. A committee member will present to Council a presentation highlighting their work plan accomplishments and next steps. Last year, the Audit Committee, Committee of Adjustment, and Property Standards Committee, and Newmarket Downtown Development Committee provided Council with a summary of the committee mandate. As these committees are primarily application-based and do not have a work plan update, they will not be doing a formal presentation tonight. The Library Board and Newmarket Economic Development Committee will be presenting an annual update to Council at an upcoming Committee of the Whole. Also, the Main Street BIA, as a town partner, elects its own members and will also provide updates to Council at a future Committee of the Whole meeting. As such, these committees or boards will not be presenting this evening. Thank you to all the committee members for their hard work and dedication.
Thank you. Our first presentation tonight will be from the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I believe Sharon Cook will be making that presentation. Sharon?
Thank you, Aaron. Our work plan areas: Public Awareness Campaign, Annual Accessibility Award, National Access Awareness Week, York Region Area Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting, Stopgap Ramp Program, amendments to the Municipal Act 2001, accessibility audits of town facilities, and accessible taxi cabs. Accomplishments in 2017 are accessible taxi services. Agreement with the City of Vaughan is in place. Accessible taxi services for information advertised on town website. Town facility audit, Newmarket Theater audit completed June 2017. Our council chambers AV project consultation, attended vendor demos to evaluate the products. Engineering Public Works Service Department's consultation. Provided feedback on various proposed park designs and renovations for 2017-18. Upcoming are the collaborate with staff and BIA to look at ways to make downtown Newmarket more accessible. Committee to conduct a walk around downtown area and meet with BIA to discuss option and development awareness plan campaign. National Access Awareness Week is 2018, an audit of town facilities. Old Town Hall audit scheduled for fall of 2017. 2018 elections. Provide support for internet voting and a way of removing barriers. Audit of voter assistance centers once selected. Host York Regional Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting. And facility audits, as you can see in the picture, was completed June 8th, 2017, Newmarket Theater. Thank you on behalf of the Accessibility Advisory Committee of Sharon Cook, Steve Foglio, Chair, Linda Jones, Jeremy Slesser, Richard Wilson, and Stephen McKenzie. Thank you.
Are there any questions with respect to any of the presentations at all? Great, thank you.
Thank
There being none then, could I have a motion to receive this presentation? Councillor Bazan, seconded by Councillor Quappies. All those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you. Now, our next presentation will be from the Elman W. Campbell Museum Board, and the presentation will be by Jackie Plater as the chair. Jackie, you might want to lower the mic a bit.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting us here to tell you all about the Elman Campbell Museum. Our mission statement for the museum is to collect, preserve, research, and interpret the heritage of Newmarket for education and enjoyment of the public. Our vision statement, to make awareness and appreciation of local heritage an integral part of the community's life by offering excellent service and quality programs. I'll give you a little bit of background on the museum. The Newmarket Historical Committee, now known as the Newmarket Historical Society, started collecting artifacts for the museum to document the history of Newmarket in 1972. Elman Campbell, a local Main Street merchant, gathered artifacts in his garage. Elman contributed hundreds of artifacts from his family to the Newmarket Museum. And the upper floor of the old fire hall became the first home of the museum. It opened June 22nd, 1982. And then the new Elman Campbell Museum opened in the former office specialty in 1991. The museum staff started moving into the former registry office building in November 1996, with a grand opening planned for May 1997. In 1987, the building was designated an historic site under the Ontario Heritage Act. The museum houses the Newmarket Historical Society and also the Heritage Newmarket. We have many annual events. Two of our top ones are Mother's Day Tea, which is always sold out, and Family Day, which the children really love, and we're usually full at that point. We also do the Exceptional Easter Fun Day and Canada Day Open House at the museum. Last year we had 2,000 visitors on Canada Day, which was totally amazing. Some of our annual events are Family Day, Victorian Mother's Day Tea, the Gallery of Festive Trees, March Break, Canada Day Open House, gift shop, the Christmas gift shop sale. And if you've never been to our gift shop, you need to come. There's lots of good presents there. We have the Exceptional Easter Fun Day, Spooktacular Halloween Party, and cocoa and cookies with Santa. Two of our special displays for 2017 were the First World War display and also Canada 150, Do You Remember? And if you haven't been there, you need to go see it. It's a very well done display. The Elsie Chernick Gift Shop is operated by the Friends of the Museum. The gift shop offers a variety of unique old-fashioned gifts, including antiques, books, wooden toys, and much more. We have developed many partnerships over the years. This year we had the British Home Children exhibit and partnered with the Old Town Hall. Right now we have the artwork of George Lousby in partnership with the History Hound. We have the World Remembers, a digital project commemorating those who fell during World War I, partnered with Newmarket Public Library, Heritage Newmarket, and the Newmarket Historical Society. Our work plan and goals for 2018. We have a presentation coming up entitled Underground Railway, Freedom to Passage in partnership with the Old Town Hall in February. We look forward to working with the town staff on the museum master plan this year. The museum is a destination on Main Street, and we would like to expand in the area which we're in. As Main Street grows and prosper, we would also like to grow and prosper. We need more programming space for community events. We would like to consider nearby properties. Our events are successful, but space is limited. We look forward to working with the town and Heritage Partners for an outdoor digital sign. I would like to thank all the members of the museum board, Councillor Tom Bay, Ross Caster, Jean Eade, who is the president of the Friends of the Museum, Billy Locke, Julie Plater, and Lloyd Robertson, my right-hand man here, or left-hand man, I guess. And I'd like to thank the Mayor and Council for your support over the years. And especially, I'd like to thank Beth Sinyard, our curator. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding the presentation? Any progress? Okay. Councillor Veig.
Hi, Jackie, thank you very much for the presentation, and thank you everybody from the museum board and Beth. Wonderful. You mentioned some of the partnerships that we have, and we have a meeting coming up talking about some plaques with ARC, ARCH, Newmarket Architecture, Recreation, Culture, and Heritage, I believe that stands for. Can you just talk for a short moment about the relationship of ARC and the museum and our other partners?
How we work with them?
Yes.
Well, ARCH is actually a committee made up of historical, the museum, and what's the other one?
Recreation.
Pardon?
Recreation.
Yeah, recreation. So we work together on projects like, what's the name of that one? The Rebel Heartland. They did Rebel Heartland, and so it's made up of all the committees. So we all work together on that, and we hope in the future to have more programs done by ARCH.
Okay, Regional Councillor.
Thanks very much for the. Thanks for the presentation. Probably like you, Jackie, I can remember going to Alvin Campbell's garage and seeing his collection and also some of his experiments and other things he was always working on. But the question I had was just wondering, like, the one thing I really find helps to sort of penetrate into the broader community for the museum and the other related committees is some of the displays and exhibits like the home boys or home children.
The home children, yeah.
Children and the
That was a great
the trench exhibit when
yeah.
they get out into the Old Town Hall. But can you comment on that? How you're it seems very successful to me, but I'm wondering, is there plans to continue to try to look at that, but even other venues around the community where you pick up different audiences? And I'm, throwing ideas out there, but imagine the trench exhibit at the mall or at the Magna Center, where you're seeing audiences that aren't your natural audience, but then would get exposed to it, because I found some of those events where I heard back from people in the community for the first time, had really engaged
Yeah.
in the history of the town through the museum.
For sure, we have discussed having, well, the Trench Committee is not connected with
Yeah.
the museum, but still, I'm on that committee. I'm on the World War I Trench. And so we have talked about having it like at the mall, or maybe at the Legion, or someplace else. So that is in the works, so that's a good question. And like, all I can say is we are working on it.
Yeah.
And the museum is always looking at new ideas and new presentations to have in different locations in the town, because we're centered downtown, which we love. We basically deal with people in that community. But we would like to expand out, and there's so many new people in the new subdivisions, and we would really like to get them to come to the museum or to the Historical Society. And so we're all working on that.
Yeah, and
It's spreading out a little bit, for sure.
And
Yeah.
that's, I mean, general just idea that
Yeah.
you want to do both, but
We do.
not only bringing people to the history, but bringing the history out
Yeah.
to people in the community in
For
different
sure.
locations.
We've also talked about taking it into schools.
Yeah.
And you know, it's sometimes hard to work with school boards, but we are working on that. So that would be a great way to get it into the history, into the heart of Newmarket, is to go into schools.
Yeah,
So
great, thank you.
something for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Kerwin.
Thank you, Mrs. Plater, and I'd just like to make a comment. I see Beth Sinyard sitting in the audience, and she was our original curator. And Beth, I think you've served faithfully for about 35 years, and you've worked for the town under some really adverse conditions. I remember when we used to meet in the old fire hall upstairs, and then we shifted to the office specialty, and then finally relocated on Main Street. And I see many faces here in the audience, like Athol Hart and Jean Eade, and many around here who have served faithfully, either heritage or historical or recreation or culture. And the other thing that you're responsible for, and I saw them working away, I think there was Beth Sinyard there was Athol Hart. You're in the library because you have Arch, which sets up a corner, and you bring all the artifacts from the museum, and often from other areas of town, and people really like that type of thing. So you're actively involved, but the time commitment by many of you is admirable, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart, because I sat on the original board when we hired Beth Sinyard. I'm long in the tooth now, but it's been a joy to see how it's evolved and morphed into intertwining, as you say, Arch, which is all of them together, and you're being so productive. And when you think of the British Home Children, and you think of the Trench, and the hundreds of people who enjoy being on Main Street, because our heritage really is there in the museum. And so thank you so much on behalf of the town of Newmarket and council. You're absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. There being no further questions, it'd be appropriate to receive this deputation. Councillor Vague, seconded by Councillor Hempin. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Our next presentation is the Newmarket Environmental Advisory Committee, and Mr. Burchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. NEAC members are basically Petra Volmerhausen, Jill King, and Jill is here behind us. Ben Longstaff, Ben. Catherine Ethier. Catherine's been providing a lot of information around the Newmarket plan to staff. Dana Farsad, who's just joined with us and doing some amazing work. Steve Kovacevic is unable to be here this evening and apologizes. And of course, Councillor Vey is our representative. You've got a fairly lengthy presentation behind you. I'm not going to go through it. I'm assuming everybody's read it. For those who wanted the real detail in the committee format structure, it's at the end of this presentation. And the areas I'm just going to do are highlight. I think the key thing, and we've been very successful We've had a number of vacancies this year, but they've just been filled. And frankly, I said to the members, it was one of the best discussions we had last week when the 3 new members joined. So I'm also very optimistic that somebody be willing to take over the chairmanship of this, so I can move on. So basically, the key thing I want to show you. I'm sorry. What am I doing here, Hannah? I'll just use that, that's fine. So basically, it's a selected group of skilled, passionate professionals, and that's the key thing, dedicated to improving the environmental position. We're looking at really today just focusing on making enhancements to make this an even better thing for our community. Current focus was the Newmarket MEP plan, which NEAC participated in, endorsed. And Catherine, who does a lot of work in the hydro area, has been providing significant information to staff working and providing areas that that planning are looking into for possible grants to move this item forward. We've offered to help in the next stage of that plan, and hopefully we can get some funding. I'll link that in a second into some new possible opportunities. On the municipal energy plan, there are still items that council's got in the PCP corporate plan that need some funding. We reviewed a number of items this week, and you'll see some of those come forward to the next council meeting. And the only thing we're just reiterating is if you focus on energy consumption bills, then with a central focus, you'll save some more money. On the stormwater management, I think everyone knows what's happened in that. It's Jen's been working with staff, producing a very good job, and that obviously is part of what she's presenting to other municipalities for the province. We did feel at the time that there needed to be some more incentive for residents to participate in the assessments. Public outreach and engagement suffered badly. The 3 people that were here at our last meeting left the committee, and they were the ones who were really going to restructure that. So we've had some challenges this year, but we think we can set that up for next year. We need a new location for the community garage sale. Of course, the Region building is now in that location. And e-waste, as we know, was moved every 2 years, so that will happen next year as well. I would recommend for anybody who's Councillor Vay's 2 actions. I sit in Ward 1 as well. But I think those type of events where you get people out and get recycling activities, bring levels of participation out, they were very successful this year. We've run into some challenges. Basically, 3 active members resigned and resulted in less activity. And of course, when they resign, then it takes some time for them to be filled because you've got to advertise and go through committees. At that time, the challenge was members felt their expertise was not being valued. They were looking at themselves and saying, we came to help and to provide expertise and answer council's questions, and we're looking at something that we really can't contribute towards. We also had a challenge because the 2 prior appointments made by council before that never came to their meetings, just ended up resigning. I don't know whether that's just related to workload and other commitments that people have. I'm not sure. We did reduce the meetings, council's request, and what that to 7, and that has resulted in a loss of continuity. So for example, we met last week, we don't again meet till November. So anything that's on the plate doesn't get discussed, and we've had that challenge, especially when you're looking at doing events in the spring. The key, I think, is we need to be involved in early stages of things. I don't believe staff are purposely ignoring the committee. I just think what happens is everybody's so busy, and if it's not on your mind, then bottom line, what's happening is we're morphing into from an advisory role to an advocacy role. So instead of advising council on issues that we think are important, or you think they're important and need some opinions on, we're basically starting to tell you what we think you should be looking at. And that's probably not the right role for the committee to moving towards. So we took a look at this and said, look, there's a chance for a fresh start. So how do we do it? First off, we've got some great new members. And as I said, very enthusiastic at the first meeting. We still have 1 vacancy. and again, for a very similar reason to what happened before. One of the challenges is when this council started up its full term and set its priorities, environment wasn't specifically one of those. And that has created, I think, a few challenges. During that time, we've seen massive changes in climate change. And we certainly need to address a number of issues, and we've seen stormwater management as one of those. One of the things that Councillor Vey had suggested was there's a checklist that staff has in doing any projects that all look, I guess you go through a list or something, I'm not totally familiar with it, of who has to be involved. And if we were on that list, then I think the question is, somebody will say, yes, oh geez, we should check on that with them. If you don't, then if it's out of sight, it's out of mind, and that's a challenge. Community environmental plan, I guess I've been the squeaky wheel on that for the last few years. Originally it was in the Partners for Climate Protection plan, and there's some huge grant opportunities await. I'll talk further in a second. And the full-time staff member that's in the budget, we're looking for you to support that if you can. The key, I think, is communication. So NEAC needs to know the plans you have each year going forward and where we can advise environmentally. So if we're aware of what's going on, then we can basically answer questions and be prepared to answer them in a timely manner. And so then we think that's the reason for putting us on projects. Twice yearly meetings with yourselves, hopefully with a time frame where we can do more things. Staff person, I think, will achieve a lot of that because the environmental focus will be there, and then that person can advocate both ways. The environmental plan is needed for significant and provincial grants. The other thing that we do see is other municipalities around us create an environmental report. So they have an environmental plan which sets the stages of what they need to do, and then they report on the successes of those. So I guess in summary, really, we want to be part of a team that strengthens the community's dedication to the environment. In summary, we need to know the ongoing plans. We need a community environmental plan. And the one example I just wanted to bring up was the one that was announced last week, the Greenhouse Gas Emissions Challenge. Basically, that fund will provide provincial funding up to 100%, up to $10 million for municipal plans. So if you have a plan, you can apply. If you don't have a plan, you've got to try and go around the back door and see if you can get some money. It's hard. So we have an opportunity to restore our dominant environment position, and our new members are passionate, interested, and qualified. Behind this was a list of just a couple of things that the committee saw. We're not going to discuss those. We just throw those things as things that, some of those things that we think that the council might want to think about. And that's it.
Thank you. Any questions or clarification from members of the committee? Workshop, I guess? Okay. Being none, then, it might be appropriate to take a motion to receive this deputation. Councillor Vague, Councillor Pezance, all those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for some clarification, Mr. Shelton, I'm just looking at some of the environmental projects that we've undertaken, and is it my understanding that a number of our LID programs have been recognized by the Conservation Authority in terms of leadership in our role as far as environmental stewards go? Mr. Sheldon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Nope. Yep. We'll click you in here. Okay. There we go.
Thank you very much. In terms of that program, Newmarket has been a significant leader in the LID program, commencing roughly with the development at Bathurst and Davis Drive. That was one of the first, and it is showcased to a number of other municipalities. In fact, we both participated with a delegation that came from China to see some examples of LID projects, and they were looking at, I believe, 2 in Newmarket at that time, and I think there is a another tour tomorrow, in fact, coincidentally, of some of the LID features in the town of Newmarket. Our Director of Engineering has been a significant proponent of the LID program and is looking at embedding them where it makes sense in all of the different projects, such as the most recent one that you see at the Ray Twinney complex. So we are leading, I would say, in that particular area, and the Conservation Authority has been a fantastic partner in that program.
Okay, thank you. There's also the suggestion that we might be missing some grants. Are you aware of any grants that we've missed?
I'm not aware of any, but I must say that the grant programs are coming fairly fast and furious. And staff, we have a dedicated staff member that, in addition to other staff that are looking at various grants that are coming forward, such as the GHG grant opportunity that is available right now. And we are making applications for a number of grants. We have gone over priority programs from a general nature with council to make sure they tie into your strategic priorities. We have been successful in quite a number of grants to date, such as water system grants, and we continue to apply for them. I think part of the challenge may be that we also are one of a municipality that owns its hydro utility. So we are taking advantage of programs through hydro as well. So I'm not aware that we're missing anything, but if it doesn't hurt for NEAC or any other group to pass on information, and it acts as a double check to ensure that we are pursuing, all the grants that are available that make sense to Newmarket based on our strategic priorities. And that is an important point, that we can't chase everything. We've got to chase the ones that fit with council's priorities and that make sense in terms of our budget constraints and resource constraints.
Okay, thank you. That's the other thing I was going to mention. It's meetings like this, and particularly when we look at reviewing the work plans, that we make sure that there's a good understanding of what we'd like to accomplish as a council and how these advisory committees can be part of that. So that hopefully will make things a little clearer for the new members in the committees, so that they know, right up front when they sign up with the committee what the expectations are. And I think that makes it for a more productive relationship. So that's been very helpful. I would like to have staff take a look at some of the issues that were raised here, and for council's benefit, I'd like to see perhaps an information report, just so that we get a good understanding of some of the concerns that have been identified and how they have been addressed. So that would be of good benefit, I think, to council. I have Councillors Kerwin, Councillors Quapis, and the regional councillor in the queue. Councillor Kerwin, you're first.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and I see her in the audience. Rachel Prudhomme was involved in a really, really beautiful project on Forest Glen in Ward 5. And there is a video that she has that's really absolutely incredible about how it started and what it looks like upon completion. And our CAO is quite correct in the fact that we have a meeting at the Conservation Authority that starts at 12 noon tomorrow and it goes to about 4 o'clock in the afternoon with regard to stormwater management and low impact developments and all the projects that are around the region of York. But I must say, sitting on the Conservation Authority, and I was out there with Rachel when she had her boots on working away at Forest Glen, which is just a jewel, and I see Ben in the audience, he was out there too, is that Newmarket is a leader, in fact, in addressing the concerns of the future with regard to the environment, Mr. Mayor, and I'm happy to say that and happy to be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Quapis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess part of my question is already answered. With all the initiatives that we have, the environmental initiatives such as the LID program on Forest Glen that Councillor Kerwin has just mentioned, the new Lions Park that's just been redone in order to be environmentally friendly, with an amazing job that was done over there, and many other initiatives such as stormwater initiatives and so on. I was under the impression that Newmarket is one of the leaders in the environmental impact municipalities. Any comments comments on that? It seems like maybe what we just heard here, that we might not be as leading as I was under the impression that we were.
Well, perhaps we can address all of those issues in the information report that we're looking forward to.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll summarize some of that, and we'll circulate that to council. Okay, good. Thank you. The Regional Councillor?
Thank you very much. First of all, I just want to say to John Birchall and to the committee, thank you for your, I know, a lot of passion, a lot of time and energy and dedication, far beyond the call of duty that's gone on for numerous years, and it's a committee I sat on previously. And so thank you for the work that you've been doing. And I guess the question I have, and one comment I will make, is that I think it's very fair to say that in the terms of low impact development, stormwater management, we are a definite leader in this area, and I think we're going to even excel even further in that field the next year or two. But there's many areas to the environment other than low impact development, and we're not necessarily at the forefront of all those areas. I'm not saying we don't do a good job, but there's certainly some communities, and I'll just, for example, mention Markham in terms of waste management is a leader and has some steps that they're taking that go beyond what we're doing. And so I think, we do a very good job, and we do an exceptional job at LID, but I think we can keep our mind open to the possibility for areas of improvement and look to some other communities. And so I think that's still an important exercise. My question actually is one to staff, and that's, it seems to be a bit at the core of the presentation. And so I guess I'm wondering if not now, if perhaps in a follow-up report, can I get a greater understanding of how we decide, how we as a town or staff decide which decisions or initiatives are referred to NEAC for advice, or what that process is, and if it's not now, maybe or both as part of the report as well. I think that would help us clarify or understand ourselves and perhaps the committee, what process or what can be expected.
Mr. Shelton?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We can certainly set that out in the report. Just a very quick comment. As of at the beginning of this current council, there was a decision made, and I think Lisa touched on it to begin with, and that was that there would be a focusing on, particularly in the NEAC group, to focus on 3 specific areas, and Mr. Birchall set those out, I believe. And then there would be other items referred by council to the committee. In addition to that, staff will, make decisions from time to time as to what or where they may need some advice. One of the things that has changed over the years from the beginning of the NEAC, the creation of that group, is that we did not have a full-fledged engineering area that did have total environmental expertise on staff. We've changed quite significantly, so we do have a lot of environmental expertise that is embedded in our staff and the consultants that we use. So that was also one of the reasons for the more focused approach with the environmental area, that it would be focused on 3 areas. The number of meetings would be set up based on the resources available, and there's also a provision for NEAC, which they've been doing for quite some time now, to meet in between those meetings where they just don't have staff support, and to deal with other things such as education. But it's always a struggle with making sure that you do consult with advisory committees in a meaningful way, and make sure that it is value add for both the committee and the staff as well. So we can do our best to set that out in the report.
Yeah, and if possible, if we could, and I don't know if this is too cumbersome, but maybe provide also a list of the ones that were referred or what items were referred, and then that process. So I see the areas, but some can be broadly interpreted, and so I'm just having be helpful to see some maybe even some examples, if not a comprehensive list, but some examples that help us and how the process would work then. Thank you.
Thank you. A major gain that I think the committee should be very proud of is the way that environmental perspectives have been integrated into many projects, and we've just seen a list of that, not the least of which is the Lions Park, and I think that's one that we should be opening fairly soon. The other item is that in terms of the municipal energy plan, our hydro corporation has entered into a partnership with Customer First, and the extent to which we might be able to apply some of the local initiatives through Customer First is something that we might want to give some further consideration to. And I think that the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, through the LAS, Local Administrative Services, is thinking about a home insulation program. And I know those were two big items that we were looking at in the municipal energy plan. So that might be some other areas that we could give some future consideration to. In any event, thank you very much for your presentation, John, and thank you to the committee for your commitment to our community. Our next presentation is Heritage Newmarket Advisory Committee, and presentation by Athol Hart. Mr. Hart?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Regional Councillor and councillors, and all the rest of us present, staff included, thank you for making this opportunity to listen to our update, I guess. So as you can see, we have several work plan areas. The public education and awareness. We advise council on heritage matters. We do part 4 section of the Act, that Act being the Ontario Heritage Act. We have a residential plaque program, which happens to be the strongest, if not one of the strongest, in the province. We also have it available in print format and in digital format that's available online. And as far as I know, we're the only ones in Ontario that do that. We contributed a heritage attributes bylaw for the consideration of council and staff, and I understand that Leslie will be bringing that forward to you probably in the next council meeting. So that was an event and an exercise by this committee in its last term. We also want to start a new initiative, which we call the Heritage Salvage Program. If anyone here has a heritage home, they will know the lack of availability for some of the products and materials that these old homes were built of. And when we come to the redoing of the Union Hotel, we are probably going to be able to salvage quite a large quantity of the Newmarket soft brick. So one of the things we will be asking council, and we're looking to various departments to help us, is a place to store this material. And it will then be available through the committee to people who are doing repairs on buildings and their homes. This would have helped us, of course, in the Old Town Hall project. It would have given us a quantity of those things on which we could call. Our accomplishments in 2017, the Part 4 designations, we contracted with ARA for 3 designation reports, and that is 379 Botsford, 411 Millard, and 17030 Yonge Street, which is the Quaker Cemetery. All of those things are now designated under the Act. Our public awareness and education program has to be postponed to 2018 due to lack of funds. For our residential plaque program, we have researched 3, and we have made those 3 plaques available to the homeowners who requested them. Our accomplishments in 2017 with advising council is we provided advice to council on relevant development applications. For instance, the King George School, Pickering College, Old Main Street, Forest Glen on Leslie Street, which is the Bogart House, 200 Eagle Street, and 770 Gorham Street. We provided advice to council on town and or regional projects, for instance, the aforementioned Union Hotel. We have also been working with the archaeologists on the Metrolinx rail works. The Heritage Newmarket Attribute Bylaw provided the bylaw office with best practices for conservation of heritage attributes, and especially as that relates to abandoned properties. We liaise with developers and contractors on heritage matters, providing information and advice. I got a new left arm. The members of the Heritage Advisory Committee also sit on other committees of the town, and we provide information and advice on those committees. We serve on ARCH, and right now Beth and I are getting together with some members of the recreation staff on Friday to set up The World Remembers. We are also, at the end of this month, going to do some reenacting at Fort Willow to gather strength and energy towards the reproduction of Rebel Heartland. We also serve on the Elman W. Campbell Museum Board, the Lower Main Street South Heritage Conservation Advisory Group, and the Newmarket Historical Society Board of Directors. So, our priorities for 2018. Heritage awareness and education workshops, especially with local realtors. Update and reproduce the heritage brochures. These are basically the walking tour brochures that everybody wants. We hope to do up to 4 heritage designations under Part 4 of the Heritage Act, and this is a new initiative. We're going to try and do several of the town-owned sites so that there will be no budget impact, because we will be able to prepare those reports ourselves. So, ongoing plaque research and production. We will do up to 6 residence plaques and up to 4 landmark plaques. One of the things we wish to propose to council in the future is that if someone wishes to have their home designated under Part 4 of the Act, which gives them a rather large tax incentive, is that they themselves pay for the research that's involved, because that's been our major impact on our budget. So we're trying to come up with new ways to make our program viable. So we wish to continue giving advice to council on heritage matters, and we wish to continue the stewardship of Newmarket's built heritage assets, and also natural heritage attributes. So thank you on behalf of the Newmarket Heritage Advisory Committee. Our councillor is Tom Hempen, myself as chair, Billy Locke as vice chair, Soni Felix Raj, Joan Seddon, Rohit Singh, and Malcolm Watts. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Councillor Hempen and Councillor Kerwin in the queue. Councillor Hempen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Athol, I just wanted to highlight some of the things that the committee's championed and you've championed. One thing that really stands out in my mind is the old town hall. You were very active, and the committee was very active in the preservation of this old town hall, and you named her the grand old lady and believed that she needed it to be preserved, and for that I thank you. I also want to recognize a number of items, and I'm just going to go through them just to give people an idea of what the committee's been involved in. You've worked with our downtown community and made the downtown Main Street a heritage designation or a heritage area, a district, and that took a number of years, and that's a major accomplishment for the committee and a real benefit to this community as well. Through the term of this committee, you've also worked with the committee and created a heritage registry. Right now we have about 50 homes that are designated, but we also have almost 500 homes that are of heritage significance to our community. And that registry was created recently and is another massive asset to this community. Consultation with the King George School recently at a committee meeting. the developers came forward and wanted to share what their plans were, and our committee was consulted with, and we gave our opinion, and we're part of that process in the restoration of that exterior of that building, which is a real benefit to this town as well. The list goes on, and I wanted to say that at the moment, the designated properties, we have somebody going out and doing some photography and updating the information on those homes, of those 50 homes, and that will be shared with the committee as well, so that we can look at the condition of those properties and have something to look at in the future. I wanted to say thank you to the committee, to yourself. The town is very fortunate to have somebody of your great knowledge and your hard work and dedication, and the dedication of the committee. So I say thank you to you. Now, I do have a question for you. Often people are asking me about the Union Hotel, and the Region and Viva have come to the committee and given us an update on what's happening with the Union Hotel, and people in the community would like to know what's happening with the Union Hotel, and that's at the the northeast corner of Yonge or Davis and Main, I should say. Can you give us an update as to what's happening?
Well, we are very fortunate to have been working with Metrolinx all the way along through this process. And during the process of moving the building, we found that there are some problems with it structurally. But we've been able to work with them to come up with, I believe, a viable solution for the building. When they moved the building, the bricks started to fall off. And that was because it was put up in a very strange way. And we believe it was a status thing, that somebody in the 1850s or so decided that it should look like the Brick Hotel on Main Street. And so they put metal ties between the bricks and the existing wood siding on the building. But of course, there's a space in between, and the wood siding rotted, and so the ties holding the bricks on are letting go. But this gives us an advantage, and that is to return that building to its original facade, which was a wood-sided facade. So we're going to be able to go back to its original roots by serendipity. So it will make that building stand out as an original part of Newmarket.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kerwin.
My colleague, Councillor Hempel, touched on it, but people don't really know about this residential plaque program, Athol, and it's outstanding. I ran into it when I came to some of your meetings, and I needed some information on 770 Gorham Street. And Councillor Hempel mentioned the fact there are almost 500 homes. Probably by now there are 500 homes that are plaqued in Newmarket, which will retain their historical significance right down to the future. And your committee is to be complimented on that. I didn't even know that existed until you presented it to me, Athol, and I used it to preserve the historical aspect of 770 Gorham Street, and it was used at the OMB, as you're aware. So you cannot tear down a house that's plaqued without a demolition permit, and you can't get the demolition permit unless you go through the historical or the heritage committee and the town. So you've done an outstanding job in preserving Newmarket's history. So, and what I like to see here is you're working with the realtors, because the realtors don't know that. And often they will sell a house to someone who doesn't understand the significance of plaquing. And boy, once they find out, that's a significant aspect in buying that house. So you don't buy a house that's plaqued unless you know the consequences. And you've done a great job on that. So on behalf of council and my colleagues, we thank you.
Well, Newmarket is very fortunate to have the most restorable, preservable inventory of built heritage in all of Southern Ontario. And so it's been our efforts to make those things as safe as we can for future generations.
And just one last note is that I will have the report for you from Wayne Morgan. It's been finished. Forest Green has it. I spoke with Gilles Besnaire on Thursday, and he will be giving me a copy, and when he does, I'll forward it on to you and to the Historical Society. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Being none then, can I have a motion to receive?
So moved.
Councillor Hempin, seconded by Councillor Vague. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. You did a great job on the Rebel Heartland, Athol. I'm hoping that maybe that might have a rerun. I can't wait to see Councillor Quapis on the veranda on Main Street with some cotton batting on his ear and proclaiming some of the earlier antics that we saw then. So are you planning that?
We have at this point obtained approval from Recreation and Culture to put on Rebel Heartland next September the last weekend in September next
Okay,
year.
good. It was a lot of fun. Looking forward to that as
So
well.
we have also written a new scene, and I'm trying to get Big Tall Bobby over there into playing this part, and we
Big tall Bobby. Oh,
we are going to go through with the hanging scene this time. And no, we want him to be the hanging judge. The hanging judge was Supreme Court Justice Beverly Robinson, and I think he would make one heck of a
okay,
hanging
everybody.
man.
Let's be kind to our CAO here. Okay, thank you very much. Those are all of the presentations that we had have scheduled for this evening. We do have one other committee, and that is our NEDAC committee. We do have two members here. Maybe if you could stand and introduce yourselves and be recognized as well. A new member. Good. Thank you for coming out and for your interest in our committee structure. So we are going through a review, so having had a look at the plans from each of the committees and identifying areas where we can make these plans even better is very helpful and welcome. And so I'm looking forward to that part of it. Be appropriate then to have a motion to adjourn. Councillor Hempin and Councillor Quapis. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you.